mean, there have been female war reporters like Martha Gellhorn, and it's not something completely new. It's still dominated by men. And really, I don't think of myself as a war reporter. I'm a foreign correspondent, and unfortunately, a lot of the places I cover are at war. I wish they weren't. Absolutely not. In fact, at my paper, Sunday Times, we have two roving foreign correspondents who cover all this conflict, and we're both female. And there used to be three of us, and all three of us were female, so not at all. And actually, I think women cover these things quite differently to men, and maybe we focus a bit less on the bang-bang and a bit more on the people behind the lines and what life is like for people that are trying to feed and educate and protect their children while all of this is going on, and those of course often tend to be women themselves. I hope they've learned. I mean, I suppose one of the astonishing things for me about when the West went into Afghanistan after 9/11 was having covered it before when the Russians were there and read a lot of the history, which had, various people had tried to conquer Afghanistan and been kicked out, including the British 3 times. It seemed to me that we didn't seem to have read that before going back in again. I mean, there's a British cemetery in Kabul of dead British soldiers and diplomats. People were horribly, British residents were horribly murdered in Kabul. The other thing that I was astonished to discover was that we never even spoke to the Russians about their experience, which is much more recent. And actually, I asked the Russian ambassador, who had spent 15 years in Afghanistan at different times and speaks fluent Pashto, what would you have said to them if they asked? And he said, I would have said, it's easy to get into Afghanistan, but very hard to get out. Well, because I had reported over the years many times for Pakistan and lived in Pakistan, and I had gone to Swat when the Taliban were in Swat, and so I had interviewed her father, who was a peace activist and a headmaster. And at that time, I didn't know anything about Malala. It was before she was writing her blog, and then even when she started writing it, it was anonymous to start with. So when she was shot, I didn't know I had any connection with her. I, like everybody, was horrified by what had happened. I was living in America at the time. But then I came back to England, and I was actually contacted by her agent asking me if I was interested in helping her tell her story. And of course I was, because I was fascinated by her and I cared passionately about what she was fighting for, education. And so I went to Birmingham to meet her, and when I did, there waiting for me was her father, who turned out to be this same headmaster that I'd interviewed years before. It was a great experience. She's incredibly eloquent and warm and funny. She's a really impressive person. And so the book was all her experiences. She'd grown up in Pakistan through a really time of great transformation, not in a good way for Pakistan. And so it was a really good experience to work with her, and I think she's doing amazing things. Of course, I mean, some of the most oppressive women I know in the world are Pakistani women who are very devout Muslims, but can still be standing up for women's rights and doing really impressive things, whether it's in the world of film or media or running NGOs or setting up schools themselves. There are some amazing women in Pakistan. What is role models? I mean, there's Shaman Obaid-Chinoy, who won the Oscar for her film Saving Face and is shortlisted or nominated again this year. I hope she wins. And if I start naming people, I'm going to leave people out and then upset other people. So I just think there are more women from there than anywhere.